My topic was Catholic political life. My doctrinal note, it's not actually an encyclical, was called Doctrinal Notes on Some Questions Regarding the Participation of Catholics in Political Life, and it was released in 2004. The purpose of the doctrinal note was for other Catholic bishops. It was put out by a group of Catholic bishops meant to guide Catholics everywhere on carrying out our civic duties and staying true to our faith in doing so. Throughout the church, the Catholic Church has had a long history intertwined with politics. There's always been a question of separation of church and state. There are different examples of figures throughout Catholic history that have been positive political figures. For example, Thomas More, St. Thomas More, and we see that the popes have oftentimes met with political world leaders, such as the president. According to the paper, by fulfilling their civic duties, the lay faithful exercise their proper task of infusing the temporal order with Christian values, meaning that it's important for us to participate in civic duty and use our faith as a basis and guideline. An important issue to address is that of single issue voting. Sometimes it's easy to just pick one thing to care about, and while certain issues are important, it is important to evaluate policies or candidates as a whole and not just vote on one issue. We must consider the morality of the total person or policy, and this gives us a better understanding of the importance of human life. Oftentimes, it's contended that there's a right way to be politically active and Catholic, but there is no single way to do this. We must simply reflect on our faith in our choices and opinions and do our best to support human values. The Church should not possess political power over us. God wants us to be politically autonomous. The main basis for Catholics in political life is that we must respect human life. According to Pope St. John Paul II, Catholics have a clear obligation to oppose any law that attacks human life, especially policymakers. We exist in a democracy, which is a really good thing because the democracies are able to promote human rights both in themselves and worldwide. But for a democracy to succeed, it must contain an understanding of the human person. Without this, democracies become fragile, and we are unable to protect those weaker than us in our society. It's important for everyone, not just Catholics, to be politically active and socially and active and carry out their civic duties, because by carrying out our duties and responsibilities in our earthly kingdom, we are preparing ourselves for the kingdom of heaven. The church and religion are often important with politics, but the church contends that the state's recognition of civil and political rights should not depend on a person's religious life or practices. We are all equal and should treat each other as such, regardless of your religion. I think that this document is more important in today's society than it has been ever before. It's increasingly important to pay attention and be active in our society. As we get older, we bear a greater responsibility within it and should contribute. And in the especially politically charged country we now live in, we must work for positive and faith-based change. Otherwise, we're never going to accomplish anything or be able to help anyone. In reading this paper, I learned a lot. The main things that I think are important to know is that it's easy to criticize politics and government, but that will never fix anything. We must be active and work to better our society. Our faith acknowledges that reform is always necessary because our society was not created to be perfect, as we weren't either. Democracy cannot exist without equality, which is why we must always respect human life and each other. And finally, we should glorify God through our social actions and choices in ways that will benefit others, and this will lead us on our path to heaven.